From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South, and I am Soini Gray. The 73rd session of the United Nations General Assembly is kicking off in New York. The official theme for 2018 is Making the UN Relevant to All People, Global Leadership and Shared Responsibilities for Peaceful, Equitable and Sustainable Societies. Around 130 world leaders are expected to attend. Two main issues that will be raised in this year's debate are North Korea and Venezuela. Argentina's President Mauricio Macri will be one of those attending the assembly. Macri's visit is also an attempt to gain trust from international markets. Argentine media says he's hoping to meet with U.S. President Donald Trump in hopes of boosting investment and confidence in his country's near-recession economy. He'll be having interviews with the Financial Times and Bloomberg, trying to convince their readers that the Argentine economy is a worthwhile bet for investors. For his part, President Trump arrived in New York on Sunday to attend the assembly. On Wednesday, Trump will chair a Security Council meeting on non-proliferation and weapons of mass destruction. The main focus will be on Iran and North Korea, which is likely to spark heated clashes with the other big powers there. Cuban President Miguel DiazCanel is also in New York for the meeting and says he seeks a civilized relationship with the United States.
It
is a moment in which there is a setback in regards to our relationship with the USA government, where there is an administration that has returned to the discourse of the Cold War, which has revitalized the Monroe Doctrine, therefore an administration with which it is difficult to advance in a relationship between equals seeking a civilized relationship despite differences.
And as global leaders are set to meet in New York, a new round of tariffs between China and the United States come into effect on Monday. The U.S. tariffs will affect Chinese products such as food seasoning, baseball gloves, and parts for industrial machinery. On the other hand, U.S.-made chemicals, clothes, and car parts will be subject to Chinese levies. U.S. President Donald Trump has warned tariffs would increase to 25% by January 1st unless the U.S. and China reach a trade deal. Also on Monday, the Chinese government released a white paper to clarify facts about China-U.S. economic relations. This was done to show its stance on the issue and their pursuance of reasonable solutions. The paper says the countries are at different stages of development and have different economic systems. Therefore, trade friction at some level is only natural. However, it goes on to say that the America First stance of the U.S. administration has abandoned the fundamental norms of mutual respect and equal consultation that guide international relations. Our correspondent in Beijing, Sarah Diaz, has more.
Starting today, the Chinese government has applied tariffs worth $60 billion on 5,207 US products. This is a direct response to tariffs imposed by the US on Chinese products that are, for their part, worth $200 billion US. Officials from the Chinese Customs and Tariffs Commission said that China made a decision in order to defend its rights and legitimate interests as well as to defend international stability. The Chinese government also presented a complaint to the World Trade Organization. Nonetheless, Beijing insists that dialogue, respect and negotiations are paramount to ending this trade war that threatens global economy, and that these new round of tariffs are only worsening this situation. On Monday, the Chinese government also published a white paper detailing trade relations between both countries and making clear China's stance on the issues with the hope of finding a reasonable solution.
We thank you, Sarah Diaz, for that report. 3 people have been arrested in Venezuela in connection to the assassination attempt against President Nicolas Maduro in early August. Henry Berth Rivas, Angela Exposita, and an unnamed retired colonel were identified as being behind the failed attack. Communications Minister Jorge Rodriguez said authorities continue to search for 2 other suspects connected to the attack. The government has asked Chile, Colombia and Mexico to investigate if any of their embassy workers could have also been involved.
This attack could have taken us towards a very difficult situation, to serious consequences for the Venezuelan people, to a situation of violence if these criminals would have succeeded in their attack. President Maduro will give the pertinent orders to his foreign minister, Jorge Arreaza, so that these public officials clarify from Chile, Colombia and Mexico their alleged involvement. There's no diplomatic immunity in case of cover-up of terrorists.
Venezuela's Minister of Petroleum, Manuel Quevedo, met with the Secretary General of the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries. Quevedo is in Algeria to attend a meeting of the organization. He says Venezuela wants to strengthen their mechanisms to secure oil prices and that his government wants to promote cooperation to guarantee stability in the oil markets. And this comes days after U.S. President Donald Trump threatened OPEC countries to lower oil prices.
We want to congratulate these member countries that have worked in this committee. We want to recognize their professionalism and balance. We are satisfied with the results, and we want to continue working hard. And in the year 2019, when Venezuela receives the OPEC presidency, we will continue working to improve the world economy.
A Chinese medical ship has arrived in Venezuela to provide medical support. Chinese healthcare experts will provide assistance and knowledge exchange. This is part of the cooperation agreement President Maduro signed with China during his recent visit. The Peace Ark is docked in the port of LaGuardia.
They will be here for a week, taking care of patients of all nationalities. People have already shown their interest. The governor tells me that over 1,200 Colombians will be helped here.
Time now for a short break. We'll have more news in a minute.
Telesur brings you special interviews with social and political personalities. Monday, from Washington. Tuesday, from Mexico. Wednesday, from Caracas. Thursday, from Quito. Friday, from Havana. Analysis about our continent's reality. Weekdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. One person died during clashes between police and government supporters at a demonstration in Nicaragua. Firing tear gas and rubber bullets, authorities cracked down on hundreds of pro-government supporters in the capital, Managua. According to the police, one person was killed and many wounded in crossfire between demonstrators and residents. The demonstration was being held to demand the release of imprisoned protesters. And in Colombia, another social leader has been killed. Campesino leader Carmen Elizabeth Tintinago was killed in the municipality of Sotara. Her name is added to the more than 2,000 social leaders killed since the government and the FARC signed a peace agreement. Social organizations are urging authorities to protect their leaders as 164 have been killed this year alone. In Guatemala, fishermen are suffering because of an order issued by the Agricultural Ministry prohibiting fishing in Lake Izaba. The affected are now left without state support or any source of income.
There are more than 600 fishermen affected by a ministry accord that bans all fishing for 45 days in Lake Izabal.
The problem we have is that we are banned, and I don't know how are we going to sustain ourselves. I don't know what happened with the authorities that committed to a meeting. They didn't fulfill the offer.
Ministry Accord 72, 2018, issued by the Agricultural Ministry, was enforced on September 15th with the goal of improving the reproductive process of species in the lake.
This law bans active fishing. Then how are we and our children going to survive? Pay for their studies. Every family that works on the lake depend on it to survive.
They argue that since the accord was enforced, hundreds of fishermen have been abandoned without any opportunity to work.
There's some companies, but they don't accept people from Esther. Only people from other cities. This is why we cannot stop fishing. Where else are we going to get our money to support our children?
Some don't want to put their fishing gear into storage because they are worried about not being able to pay their debts.
There are some fishermen that have a debt with the bank. They bought their nets, canoes, engines, fishing equipment.
For the fishermen, this prolonged ban is another state onslaught. They already face criminalization for fighting the coastal mining contamination in Lake Izabal.
A 36-hour transport strike is set to start on Monday in Argentina against the austerity measures of President Mauricio Macri. Trains, buses, subways, and flights will cease to operate during the strike. Airlines announced that nearly 80,000 passengers will have to cancel or reschedule their flights. Along with the stoppage of public transport, banks and schools also won't open on Monday. And Argentinians have started bartering or exchanging goods as they look for creative ways to sustain themselves as the economic crisis worsens. As prices skyrocket due to inflation, residents of Monte Grande in the province of Buenos Aires began bartering or buying products in bulk. Since the beginning of 2018, basic food prices have surged to more than double. Inflation will likely reach 30% by the end of September.
The group is big because the need is big. What we do is exchange what we don't use, and even what we do use for food, for merchandising, wherever it is oil, meat, sugar, or whatever.
Over the weekend, Brazil's Workers' Party presidential candidate Fernando Haddad continued his campaign in the city of Recife. Recife is in Pernambuco, the home state of the former president Luiz Ignacio Lula da Silva, who Haddad is replacing in the presidential run. Along with vice presidential candidate Manuela de Avila, he spoke of the importance of investing in education. Our correspondent in Brazil, Andre Vieira, has been following the campaign trail, and he brings us this update.
Fernando Haddad, the Workers' Party candidate, has intensified his campaign with the help of social organizations. He's made it clear to the public that he will follow in the footsteps of the acclaimed Lula da Silva. The polls show that he is in second place to win after the right-wing candidate Jair Bolsonaro. That's why Haddad has stepped up his campaign to highlight how bad a win for the right would be for the country. On Sunday, Haddad visited the border of Pernambuco and Bahia to reinforce ties with the working class who have been marginalized by the right wing. Fernando Haddad has pledged to do away with neoliberal policies the government implemented. The election is set to take place on the 7th of October.
We thank Andre Vieira for that report. And a social media network dedicated to the black community has been launched before the presidential elections in Brazil. The social network Black and Black aims to bring visibility to Afro-Brazilian political candidates, personalities, news, products, and activities. With about 100,000 members, the platform is already promoting 600 candidates for various governmental offices. Black and mestizo people make up 55% of the population in Brazil, yet only represent 20% of the lower house.
If your product is aimed at black culture, it's much better to have 2,000 people using it extensively than having a network of 20,000 people who just don't have the same level of engagement.
And the Brazilian National Museum launched a festival to promote history and other social sciences. This is after the devastating fire that destroyed the building in early September. Visitors can see the recovered items and learn about reconstruction efforts. Named National Museum Lives, the festival is being organized by the museum's workers. The fire that broke out on September 2nd destroyed almost the entire collection of the 200-year-old institute. Museum authorities hope to host events like this regularly. A state of emergency has been declared in parts of Jamaica's capital city. Prime Minister Andrew Holness made the announcement on Sunday. The state of emergency will last initially for 14 days. He says this is being done to address long-standing issues related to crime and public safety.
A state of public emergency. The government considers it necessary to use the extraordinary powers provided for within the state of public emergency to address long-standing and entrenched crime and public order issues which have threatened lives, taken lives, curtailed businesses, undermined the rule of law, and have deprived citizens their general right to live peacefully and enjoy a good quality of life.
And protests have erupted in Haiti over the misuse of nearly $2 billion set aside for the Petrocaribe program. The streets of Port-au-Prince were set ablaze as demonstrators demanded an inquiry into allegations of fraud by several government ministers. Security forces were on hand to defuse tensions. The program was initiated by the late Venezuelan president, Hugo Chavez, allowing participating countries to buy cheap oil with an extended repayment plan at a 1% interest rate. So far, no Haitian minister has been convicted. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi says his country is ready to enhance cooperation with the Caribbean Community or CARICOM. Wang said that both parties share common interests. He added their cooperation represents a vital part of their ties with Latin America. China will provide these countries with assistance within the framework of the South-South participation. Trinidad and Tobago's Carnival officially launched on Sunday. The actual festival will take place on the 4th and 5th of March 2019. This launch serves to signal the marketing campaign for the festival, which has spawned copycats throughout the world. But the chairman of the National Carnival Commission warned the festival is losing its place as the leader of the West Indian-style carnival. In fact, the commission chair says his goal is to bring back the festival.
I want to say to you that they have surveys that are done over the world of carnivals that we have spawned in most metropolitan cities of this world. And in Trinidad and Tobago, Carnival is not even mentioned in the first 10 carnivals in the world. So if Trinidad and Tobago Carnival is not mentioned in the first 10 carnivals in the world, and we are continuing to say that we have the best carnival in the world, then we are legends in our own minds. We have to address that and ensure that that doesn't happen.
We'll take a short break now, but we'll have more news in a few.
An occasion to enjoy the cultural diversity that defines our South American essence. Come along and find out the story behind these personalities, traditions, and artistic expressions that unite us as a whole. Real Lives. Saturdays, only on Telesur.
We are present at every event where our nations are staring. We believe in a new global vision, united in every broadcasting. We keep expanding our horizons and working on a closer and better communication. Now, in Grenada, Telesur, the news source from South America and the Caribbean.
Welcome back. Russia's defense ministry has accused Israel of infringing on an agreement between the two nations when it conducted an attack on Syria without informing Moscow in advance. Russian aircraft was downed by Israeli forces, killing 15 soldiers on September 17th. The Ministry of Defense said that there was also a civilian passenger flight using that airspace at the time, and therefore they too were potentially at risk.
The objective data represented indicate that it was an action by the Israeli combat pilots that led to the death of 15 Russian soldiers. It shows their lack of professionalism or a criminal negligence. Therefore, we believe that the blame for the tragedy of the Russian Tu-20 rests completely on the Israeli Air Force and on those who made such decisions.
One Palestinian has been killed and dozens other wounded when Israeli forces opened fire during a protest near the Israel-Gaza border on Sunday. The funeral for the man killed was held on Monday. Medical officials said he belonged to a group that tries to distract Israeli soldiers with burning tires and firecrackers. Since Gazans began holding weekly border protests on March 30th, the Israeli army has killed 184 Palestinians and wounded thousands of others. Tanzanians began to bury their dead on Sunday after a ferry capsized, killing 224 people. Prime Minister Kassim Majaliwa declared a national day of mourning and led the funerals. The MV Nairi ferry was on its way to dock on the island Yukata when the accident occurred. Many of the victims are still unidentified. And 18 people, including 14 civilians, have been killed in a rebel attack in North Kivu in the Eastern Democratic Republic near the border with Uganda. North Kivu is one of the most populated areas of the DRC. It's home to a number of armed groups that kill and abduct civilians. The Benai region is under siege from the Allied Defense Forces. The ADF, an Islamist rebel group, blamed for hundreds of civilian deaths over the past 4 years. Other armed elements, including members of the Congolese army, may also be to blame.
My sister was hurt. She was shot 5 times in the upper jaw. I saw there 5 wounded soldiers and 26 bodies. I saw that the bodies had gotten out of a military van and then brought to the morgue.
The ongoing terror in the region of Kivu in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo has inspired the creation of a vivid comic strip denouncing the region's forgotten war. French writer Jean Van Homme and illustrator Christophe Simon hope to expose the violence in the region through its fiction. The DRC is preparing to hold a presidential election in December, but has never had a peaceful transition of power since gaining independence from Belgium in 1960.
I knew Kivu well in the 1950s, and the fact that this Eden has transformed into hell touches me deeply, and I think this shows in the way I wrote the story. We couldn't show drawings of gutted women, women with cut and bleeding vaginas, but we could say so. And fiction allows, if you will, more people to access this comic strip, but the real message is obviously what is happening in Kivu.
Cette bande dessinée, mais le message véritable est évidemment ce qui se passe au Kivu.
And now let's take a look at some other stories making headlines around the world.
Thousands of people have gathered to bury the dead after an attack on a military parade in Afghan, Iran. The attack took place on Saturday, killing at least 25 and wounding 60, including 8 members of Revolutionary Guard. President Hassan Rouhani accused the United States of supporting armed anti-government groups in Iran. Anti-Brexit protesters in the United Kingdom are demanding a second EU referendum. Thousands of people lined the streets of Liverpool as the Labour Party's annual conference got underway on Sunday. Leader Jeremy Corbyn says he will support a second referendum if his party votes for it and its annual conference.
Well, I think a lot of people feel like the stuff that they were promised in 2016 when they voted just hasn't happened. So a lot of people voted to leave for legitimate reasons, I think, but what has actually happened is we've seen a government in chaos. So we've seen 13 government resignations, we've seen the government lose 33 seats, we've seen Donald Trump elected, and so there's no trade deal there, there's no money for the NHS.
The president of the Maldives has accepted electoral defeat to the opposition in a televised address to the nation. Abdullah Yameen was running for a second term in office. However, provisional results showed that Mohamed Solid is in the lead by just over 60%. Yameen faced criticism for jailing his opponents.
And China is celebrating its traditional Mid-Autumn Festival with colorful lanterns. The festival is held on the 15th day of the 8th month of the Chinese lunar calendar, coinciding with bright full moon. This year it falls on September 24th. In the old town of Taizhong in Shandong province, people lit lanterns of different shapes. During the celebrations, people often eat a traditional moon cake, which is a sign of family unity. And we've come to the end of this news brief. For these and many other stories, you can find them on our website at telesyourtv.net/English. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Tell Us Your English, I'm Sonia Gray. Thank you for watching.